Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 4. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for joining us for this Monday show. Dave, we're back 3 a week. A Monday regular Terrible Podcast. That, to me, is the official start of football season.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll really feel like the official start of football season come Thursday when the Steelers play their first preseason game, and getting pretty psyched for that. And I'm sure we'll have that tape all heavily digested by the time the Friday podcast comes around. So the third podcast this week that we do, or the regular, because I obviously will be doing the post practice ones as well. There we'll actually be talking about going over tape of from a football game. How about that?
Long time coming. Can't wait for that. Yeah, Pittsburgh will be at training camp today and Tuesday. Dave and I are recording the bulk of this on Sunday night. So if any major breaking news happens to occur between Sunday night and Monday morning, that's the reason why we're not covering it. And if you probably have already been able to surmise from the title of this podcast, if you're listening, later in the show, we'll be joined by Alan Faneca, Hall of Famer enshrined this weekend. Super excited for that. We chat with him for about 10 or 15 minutes or so, and a really cool opportunity to talk to, finally, Hall of Famer Alan Faneca.
Absolutely. People should be looking forward to that, and looking forward to the ceremonies coming up this week as well too. It's a great obviously a great celebration. Several Steelers obviously going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Bill Cowher, Troy Polamalu, Alan Faneca, obviously the late Bill Nunn being honored as well. Did I miss anybody? There's so many of them going in.
Did you say Donnie Shell?
Oh, Donnie Shell. Yeah, Donnie Shell as well too. Yeah, just so many of them going in there. And look, you know how geeked I am about both Faneca and Shell. I mean, I've spent a lot of time talking on this podcast about both of them and how they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. So really exciting time this week for Steeler fans, and feel real good for those that fans and all that are fortunate to make that trip over there to watch all the festivities. It should be a fun time for them.
Absolutely. We just hope that Troy's able to be there in person. He announced the other day that he had tested positive for COVID. He says he's feeling great, has no symptoms, and will be working with the Hall to hopefully be able to give him the clearance medically to attend the ceremony and, of course, the enshrinement. So don't know exactly what's going to happen with that, but really rooting that he's able to be there in Canton.
Yeah, after all this, and then having to wait as long as he had to wait, it certainly would be a shame if it ended up being COVID that kept him from being there in person. I would guess that if he's not, and hopefully it doesn't come to that, but he would do some sort of satellite speech probably from his house where they would have that broadcasted in. But hopefully he'll be there in person. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
All right, Dave, let's get to a bit of housekeeping before we dive into the bulk of today's show. Steelers tight end Dax Raymond was waived injured the other day due to some sort of leg injury suffered in practice. He has cleared waivers, according to you, and is now officially on the team's reserved injured list. I imagine at some point he'll probably be released with an injury settlement like last season, but that is a small piece of Steelers housekeeping.
Yeah, absolutely. And he did clear waivers on Saturday and reverted. I wrote that up on Sunday, and now we'll wait and see. DeMarcus Christmas is the other one that was on that was waived injured and then cleared waivers and landed on IR, and they did not work out an injury settlement with him, so he remains there on a split salary. We'll have to see. We'll know within about 7 days or so, I think, is the timetable there. So if he doesn't, then obviously he will have a split salary, and for however long he's on IR for us. Could that run all the way up to the season and into the season? Absolutely, it could. So we'll just have to wait and see as far as that goes, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed that this team can stay healthy, and they don't have a lot of linemen fully healthy right now. There was no transaction or anything on Sunday there, offensive lineman related. We'll see if there's one early Monday or whatnot. Maybe they'll start getting a few of these guys back in the offensive lines, if you will, come Monday's training camp practice.
Hoping so. They could really use him right now, and I think Dotson and Hassenauer were close, so I'll be watching very closely to see if those guys are back. Was Trey Turner just getting a rest day on Saturday, or is there an injury? I think what happens Monday or does not happen Monday will be an obvious clue to that. And BJ Finney, don't know how serious that left wrist, hand, whatever it is, injury he's dealing with. So a lot of guys who aren't seriously hurt but aren't in action. And yeah, the Steelers finished Sunday's or Saturday's practice with 8 healthy offensive linemen. So hopefully a couple guys come back, or I think they're going to need to add another guy to the lines.
Yeah, what's up with Zach Banner? Well, it'll be interesting to see if he gets can get back moving around to some degree. So interesting to see what's going on there as well too. Danny Isadora signed with the Patriots. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Danny Isadora ended his 2020 season on the Steelers practice squad, wasn't it? Wasn't he on the practice squad, or was he on the 53?
I think it was on the 53.
Yeah, he
I
was on
believe
a
so.
53.
Yeah.
That's right, because he ended up being an unrestricted unrestricted free agent that they did not sign there. So that's one. Then who else was it? Gerald Hawkins signed with somebody during the week. Who was that?
Did he? I missed all this news while I'm at camp.
I'm sorry. The Texans signed Danny Isadora. Was the Texans, and I think the Patriots were the ones that signed Gerald Hawkins.
Really? How did I miss that? Yeah, he went to New England. How about that? Well, good for Gerald Hawkins.
And then I think Derwin Gray is still with the Jaguars, and I don't know. Right now, a lot of those guys are looking like
Fred Johnson, yeah.
looking like you need them now, and you wouldn't have said that obviously a few months ago. No, just keep your fingers crossed. Several of these offensive linemen start getting healthy and can more importantly start working together, because none of that projected starting 5 has worked together yet, and they need to start getting that underway here pretty soon. At least not too soon after the Hall of Fame game takes place there.
Sooner the better for this offense line. It's the subject of my Monday terrible take. Just that concern about the O-line in general, the guys who have played, and just as importantly, the guys who have not participated so far. And speaking of nostalgic Steelers offensive lineman, Patrick Morris got released by the Broncos and signed with the Titans. So that was a guy that we thought maybe could come in because of the center injuries there, but he's now with Tennessee.
Yeah, they was looking for a little while that he might be the next kind of Doug Legursky, if you will, but off to Denver he went, and now he's out of Denver there. So interesting to see. Look, I mean, make no bones about it. You got BJ Finney banged up, and I would have bet you probably dollars to donuts that BJ would have probably been the guy that probably would best challenge Kendrick Green, but that doesn't seem to be the case, does it? It seems to be J.C. Hassenauer or Kendrick Green. That's it. That's the list.
Well, right now the challenge is the trainer stable versus Kendrick Green, but so it's hard to even gauge who actually would be given in that challenge. I think it probably would be Hassenauer, but I mean, he's been unavailable, and Finney, has been running second team and then gets dinged up. And so it's been Green all alone. And so I think the odds of Green being your starter week 1, barring any sort of implosion with him during preseason action, is pretty high at this point. And I think it's just the best scheme fit overall. He can move in ways that Hassenauer and Finney just aren't able to do.
Yeah, the bar right now, we talked about how low that bar was just to begin with. It's really low now.
They somehow lowered a bar we thought was impossible for them to lower.
I know. It really is. I mean, if Kendrick Green does not win that center position now, oh Lord, So anyway, first preseason game comes up. Like we said the other day, I have a feeling we're gonna see one John LeGlue take some snaps at center later in that game.
Yeah, I watched him at camp the other day. It was very early in practice before most players were even on the field. He was kind of over in the corner of the end zone, looking at his feet, working on his steps. I think might be a little terrified to play center, a new position for him, but he's probably gonna have to play a decent amount of snaps there on Thursday.
All
right, Dave. With the Steelers having an off day on Sunday, I spent my Saturday night turned up compiling training camp stats from the first.
What?
Yeah,
Wait. How do you do, fellow kids?
That's what I feel like. I am 60 years old in a 28-year-old body. That is my
Turned
life.
up. All right.
Hmm. Remember that one.
I bet. I bet. I mean, looked like you compiled a lot of stats there. That's gotten kind of mixed reviews, and I guess it kind of does every
Hmm.
time during this year. Some people really enjoy them, and some people say, basically nerds. That it's too early for that. Where's the happy medium in there for those for the people on both sides of for the people that try to use them to fit a narrative that so and so should be the quarterback, or for those that say it's way too early to look at
Right.
these, or why even do this, Alex? Where's the middle ground there, Alex?
Yeah, I think both people have a case to be made. You don't want to be beholden to these numbers because A, it's just training camp. B, they're just numbers, so they don't always tell, and most of the time they don't tell the complete story. I think they just help with me at least in trying to convey that in my analysis of these numbers to you know is what I'm seeing and what I'm saying backed up by stats, or is there a discrepancy there? And if it's the latter, why is that? Is that because maybe my opinion is wrong, or because of other factors that the stats don't get to show? So, I mean, there's a reason why I don't sit there after every single practice and talk about it. I do it on off days when there's time to compile this stuff because I don't want to be married to these numbers. I think the eye test is more important than the numbers, but I think it's nice to have this kind of data and be able to quantify some of these things. So, for example, we talk about Dwayne Haskins pushing the ball downfield. We can say that all day, but we can look at the numbers as well and see he has the most yards, the highest yards per attempt, and the highest yards per completion. And so we can kind of back that up by saying the numbers are telling us this, and the eye test is telling us that he's really definitely pushing the ball downfield. So yeah, you don't want to overreact to it. And I know it's super nerdy, but my thing is, you're not going to get this anywhere else for any other team in the world, and so why not us be the guys to provide this extra level of Steelers nerdiness.
And that's I mean that it's hard to that doesn't look good on a T-shirt or on a web banner, but
Should I
that's
cancel that order then?
oh yeah, but I mean
Okay.
that's how I built this thing, right? I mean
Right.
that's what attracted me to you many moons ago. The level of detail, and I think that's what attracted you to kind of work for the site
Hmm.
as well, was the level of detail, kind of stuff that I had been getting into. It's not the actuality, I don't think, of the stats as more as it is the generality of the stats. Would that be correct? Because obviously we don't have average depth of target here. We don't have
Right.
a true. Because I mean, and you highlight this as well too. You're going to miss a snap or two, and there's not going to be actual yardage be right on the money in here. There's going to be
Right.
drop passes that are not accounted for. There's going to be interceptable balls that are not accounted for. It's
Mhm.
more. It looks good to have the actual or attach numbers to it, but it's more the generality of being able to say, all right, well, based on my numbers throughout camp, Haskins was the one that was pushing the football down the field more. Or check down Charlie. Mason Rudolph was checking the ball down a lot, and when he did push the football down the field, maybe it got picked off, or these compiling the 7 shot stats in general.
Mhm.
And on their own, those kind of things there. So I think people try to get too caught up with, look, no, you're not going to stop doing them, so people
No.
can forget about that. But I think people just need to glance at them, make a note of them, and then let's move along, and then let's see kind of what the final numbers say and what kind of loose conclusions we can draw from there. It's more of a running tape measure,
Hmm.
more than anything, and uh, once you said it, kind of backs up kind of things that you are seeing with your own eyes out there to be able to properly convey it to myself and the listeners. Did I put that all right?
You did. To me, it's just one piece of a very big puzzle. So again, I'm not married to these numbers, but I think it's important to add that context and mostly objective data. Obviously, not everything's are subjective. I'm not going to pretend like every single yard is accounted for. It's been actually harder to count yards this year at Heinz Field because the numbers aren't painted the way they are in Latrobe. So it's a little more difficult, a little more approximate this year. But I think I've gotten a good system down pat. And for us, the other element to consider is we now have these stats going back several years now, aside from last season, obviously. And so we can compare past years and past performances of some of these individual players who have been through multiple camps. And, Josh Dobbs, for example, I've always harped on him for the poor completion percentage. Well, he's at 75% right now. It's a very small sample size, 20 attempts, but, we're seeing some positive trend there. So we can use this data to compare, over the last 5, 6, 7 years to the numbers now, and at least I think maybe flesh out some of these numbers and the value of them a little bit more than just looking at these numbers in a pure vacuum.
Right, and it's still not going to stop people from wanting to trade Mason Rudolph to the Colts and make Haskins the number 2. Right? Look, it's great that Haskins is off to a great start in camp. I mean, look, one of the things Alex and I said right after he was signed was, let's get him to camp first. That's step number 1. Step number 2 will be how he performs in camp, and so far so good. I mean that's the kind of stuff that you're hoping for along with this. Now, later on this week, hopefully we'll get to see him play quite a bit in a game, and not only him but Mason Rudolph and Josh Dobbs as well too. And I think one of the preview points in that we've made several times now are these are 3 experienced quarterbacks that aren't going to be first timers underneath the lights. They know how to prepare for games. They know how to play for preseason games. They know what's all at stake here, that kind of thing here. We should be expecting good performances as bested on their end. Now, obviously, the quality of players that they might be playing with will obviously differ to some degree, but overall, we should be able to, that's where the true test I think is, in being able to grade the quarterbacks, especially in the preseason moving forward, is because this is not their first time out there in under the NFL lights in a stadium.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a great point and really good perspective overall. And again, Haskins has been impressive. He's been more impressive than Mason Rudolph. That's, I think, just a fact at this point. But it is just practice, and I've said this several times before. Is that this is a guy that I'm sure has always looked good in a practice setting, and so can that translate to an in-stadium environment? That'll be the big test and question for him. So it is, passing the next test. Haskins getting signed was the first thing, then making it to camp, and then looking good in training camp. And he's done all those things so far. But the next step is looking good and carrying that over into actual game action against a defense you haven't repped and played against, for an entire spring the way that he has the Steelers defense. So they're building blocks, they're obstacles. Rudolph is still the number 2 right now in terms of the way they're running in training camp. I saw some, speculation and some maybe implication that Haskins was splitting snaps or overtaking Rudolph based on practice participation. I've gone through the charting, and that is not the case. That is not accurate. But if that changes, we'll certainly let you know. And I think Haskins has at least played well enough to begin to warrant the conversation that if Haskins has a really strong preseason and if Rudolph struggles, could there be an open case for that number 2 spot? I don't think it's impossible if those things all happen.
Right.
So that's the numbers on that.
It would really take, in my opinion, it would take Mason really, really having a poor preseason. So
right.
We'll see.
Yeah, we will see. But that is the test and kind of where things are at right now. And then the quarterback reps, we were actually able to track reps for the first time this year as well, and they're pretty even. Haskins has 76, Rudolph has 72, Ben has 46, and poor Josh Dobbs just 28 through 4 practices. And so he's the guy where the reps just aren't there. Granted, they know more about Josh Dobbs than they do, say, Dwayne Haskins, but just the opportunity there for Dobbs is pretty limited right now.
And here's the other thing too. I mean, this is the time that you got to find out about Haskins anyway. You already got a pretty good idea heading into this camp. You've seen Dobbs for several years now. You've seen Mason Rudolph for several years now. So it would make sense that you would want to probably, and yeah, I know you want to get Mason enough reps in there because of the offense and new offensive coordinator and things along those lines. But look, once you get out of preseason here, the hope is that you don't have to see any of these guys.
Right.
So you obviously want to get Haskins as many snaps as you possibly can, and borderline probably splitting the snaps with Mason throughout this process, because this is really the only time that you're going to have to evaluate him the next, believe it or not, what do we got, 6 weeks until week 1. So you've got 6 more weeks to get a full understanding of what you do or do not have in Dwayne Haskins. So it makes sense that he's going to get a lot of reps during this camp and in the preseason.
Right. Not only for just the potential role for this year, but the future role for next season. Because ideally, Ben plays all 17 games, never misses a single snap aside from some kneel downs and maybe a little bit of mop up time. And so you need to have as much information on guys like Rudolph and especially Haskins to maybe make your offseason plans and begin to at least shape some of that conversation if and assuming that Ben retires. So it's important for the here and now, of course, to see if he can win a job and make the team, which he seems to be on track to do. And then, at least give you some sort of conversation point for maybe next March.
Right. Everybody wants that instant gratification though. Right now, they want Mason gone. They want Haskins number two, and want Haskins to be the future right now. And I think we still got a lot to learn throughout, especially about Haskins throughout the rest of this preseason.
Right.
We'll see if Mason can do enough to, in our eyes, at least deserve to keep that number two spot. So
Sure.
a lot left here. Good. Hey,
Yeah,
it's a good thing they've got 4 preseason games this year, if you ask me.
absolutely. I'd play 10 of them if it was up to me. I don't think the NFL wants that, but you and I would go old.
NFLPA would like to have a word with you, Alex.
They've entered the chat. Yeah, for sure. But Rudolph, remember, he's got a long body of work. He's been with his team now for 4 seasons. So has his practices to begin camp been good? No, generally speaking, they haven't been. There's some context there that's worth talking about. Some drops, and Juju dropped a 60-yard touchdown that would have certainly helped the numbers and maybe some of the perception of Rudolph. But this team's got a long body of work. It's been the same head coach, the same GM. So they're not going to be too swayed necessarily by just a couple of practices. Now, if it becomes practices and preseason and Haskins plays well and all those kinds of things, then it's a different story. But I think context here and body of work should also be recognized in this process.
All right, while doing your fancy math and whatnot, what else?
The fancy math, the adding and the tallies. You should see my math, Dave. It's just great stuff.
I've tried to explain this like 4 times to my wife how you go about doing all this stuff, and she would like she would like a video on that quite possibly. So the hieroglyphics,
tell her to
all like
watch
that.
paint dry.
Well, one day when I'm pretty sure down the road there's going to be a 30 as popular as you are. There's going to be like a 30 for 30 on you. So get next time Tim comes out there, have him put the the still camera down and get one of them moving pictures camera.
I'm waiting for the keep out sign in Heinz Field. They're going to say, Alex, you are not allowed in
You probably
here.
ain't too far. You're going to have to start wearing Bobby Valentine disguises.
Mustache. Yeah.
Yeah, dark glasses and a hat. And yeah, you have to shave. You have to go. The beard will have to come off and all like that. Well, then they'll think you're 12. They won't let you in.
Yeah, then I won't be able to drive my car. I'll get pulled over. I won't make it to Heinz Field.
All right, about that fancy math that you do. Anything else that stick out other than like the quarterback's stats and all?
Yeah, beyond quarterbacks, running backs, not a whole lot. Najee leads the team with 18 carries, and that yards per carry at 3.2 doesn't look great, but he's had some poor run blocking, and I'm not too worried about that number. Kalen Balazs, second most carries with 14. It's more than McFarland and Snell, who each have 8, and so a little interesting note there as well. I think Balazs has a good shot to be number 4 running back on this team. Steelers have done that jet motion quite a bit. They've actually handed it off to the jet players 7 times. They've gone for 3.6 yards per carry. Tyler Simmons has done it twice. Other guys like McFarland, Sexton, McCoy, McLeod, and Washington have done it once. I thought Claypool would get one of these, but so far hasn't really been used a whole lot in that motion game in terms of jet action the way I thought he might.
All right, interesting there. Tyler Simmons is a kid we talked about quite a bit. Georgia product. Gonna really have to make a mark in special teams to several of these guys that are planning on assuming there's no injuries at the wide receiver depth chart. It unless you have a Arnez Battle type player that's just special teams guru, and that's the way he's looked at first and foremost, regardless of position. That's the only way one of those other wide receivers is going to make this roster outside of the 5, unless one of those 5 get injured. There is Ray McLeod a lock?
Again, I'm hesitant to call it a lock in the same way that I would a Washington or a Juju or Johnson or Claypool, but I mean, I think it would take a lot, something pretty monumental to kick him off the roster.
And I don't think at this point now, anyway, I mean, what's Deontay going to do for you return-wise, you think?
Probably, if Ray Ray's on the team, then nothing in terms of being the starter.
Right, and you would kind of hope that that's the way they want to go. Somebody, the guy needs to concentrate on catching the football this year. Less so, I think, on worrying about returns and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Plus, you run. Yeah, I live in my fares, whatever. But yeah, I'd much rather see him concentrate on playing that X position. And look, I mean, McLeod, for whatever it's worth. It was a positive season when it came to Steelers and a return, right?
Yeah, something we haven't said in quite some time, at least in the kick return game. Things did fade towards the end last season, but a strong start. And yeah, I would expect McLeod to be the starting kick and punt return. Now Johnson's probably a backup punt return guy, maybe McFarland, but I think he does more kicks than punts. But to start, it should be McLeod.
Balaj is somebody I'm interested to see in a Steelers uniform during the preseason. I feel like I know him pretty well already just on his previous tape, but man, I sure am rooting. I tell you, I tell you the root of my root here
Okay.
is that I don't want Jalen Samuels on this 53 man roster. So whatever that means, whatever that entails for him to not be on the 53 man roster, I'm all in favor for, and that's what I'm rooting for. So, and it does. I mean, just based on kind of what you've put out there so far, I mean, it does seem like Anthony McFarland Jr. is kind of like the clear cut backup, at least right now, right?
Yeah, it feels that way. And again, not only being a backup, which I think he will be, but also some pony opportunities and some of that jet stuff that's going to work well in Canada's offense. And obviously, they go back to 2018 at Maryland. McFarland had that really strong season, averaged 7 yards a carry. So, yeah, I think there'll be a backup role for McFarland, of course, a next man up opportunity, but also some sort of occasional role, 5 snaps a game, 3 snaps a game of some pony stuff as well. That's the way things seem to be trending right now, at least.
Okay. Anything on, let's say I mean, tight ends? There's not a lot to talk about. Ebron not on the field. We've talked a lot about Fryermuth this last week, and he's going to be someone we talk about quite a bit moving forward here. So probably not reason to spend a lot of time on that position group there. But I mean, defensive side of the ball, any sort of stats or whatnot you keeping that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, the only defensive stat that we track, and I could add more, but it gets a little messy, and I don't always have that data tracked as reliably and consistently. But interceptions, James Pierre, and this is just in team drills, by the way. These numbers are not off of 7-on-7 or individual type stuff. This is team drill action only. James Pierre, 2 interceptions, and then the rest of the group has one. Shakur Brown, Lamont Wade, Trey Norwood, Minka Fitzpatrick. I know Brooks had one before we got there, but I'm only doing it from practices that I've seen. I think that's probably the best and most fair way to go about it. But Pierre, 2 interceptions his last 2 practices, and both have come in 7 shots, one off of Rudolph and one off of Dwayne Haskins. And so that's being a playmaker and making that splash plays down in the red zone in the goal line. That's going to get you playing time on this defense.
Going to be a lot of young players worth keeping an eye out for. People say you get into third, fourth quarter of some of these preseason games, especially the first one. How do you guys even watch that? I tell you how we watch it with both eyes open because going to be some. We talked about Denmark and James Pierre. Look, this is Justin Lane. Better start getting on the horse here. He's going to get a lot of playing time. I have a feeling against the Cowboys, and he really needs to make a mark there. You got Norwood. You got several of these young defensive backs. Going to see a lot of time in this game. You're going to have guys like UG3 hopefully out there in the middle of that defense playing quite a few snaps. You're going to have rookie Buddy Johnson. So within the obvious story of Fryermuth and maybe Najee Harris and Kendrick Green on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, the later that you get into that game against the Cowboys on Thursday, I think most of our attention is going to be on the defensive side of that ball, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting guys defensively. I'm super excited to watch Steven Denmark and UG3. And I mean, Justin Lane should start this game. He should play a decent amount of snaps. It'd probably be him and Pierre as the outside corners. And with Brooks in the slot. So Lane's going to have to impress and fast. Could he do it? Sure. But the time starts now for one Justin Lane.
All right, what are you looking for right out of the chute when you get back out there at Heinz Field on Monday?
Well, first, the injury report. Hopefully, some of these offensive linemen come back, whether that's a Finney or Dotson or Hassenauer or Trey Turner. Certainly want to see what's going on with him. And then from there, nothing maybe too much in particular, but just, the volume and body work. The guys who have been playing well, can they continue that after an off day? The guys who struggle, they kind of come into Monday with a clean slate? And and pick things up. So health of the team, kind of the first big thing, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Is it pretty much business as usual going into kind of like the second and third week from your experience in the past? There going to be I'm sure probably going to kind of limit them a little bit on the pads now with the game kind of closer, right? Do they usually put on pads a couple days before the preseason game?
That's a good question. I'll have to go back and check some old notes. I think there have been times where I figured they were going to be in shells, and then they ended up in pads or more intense practice than I anticipated. So I think it just kind of depends on the group and the health of guys and things like that. But you would imagine maybe they'll be a little more active on Monday and then kind of shells things for Tuesday to get ready for Thursday's game. But I think Tomlin can kind of surprise sometimes.
All right, after the practice the other night or other day on Saturday, Najee had a 10-minute media session there. What a character he is, right? I mean, really personable guy. Really goes out of his way, I think, to explain. The media's going to have a field day with him. He's going to learn to say less. He's going to learn to say less and not be so. What's the word? Not cocky, but matter of
Forthright.
fact,
Okay.
matter of fact, forthright. He's got because they'll end up using some. You know how it works. I have a feeling he's going to start saying a little bit less as he starts learning the game here, moving on. But I mean, nothing wrong with what he said, obviously, the other day there. He asked about preseason play time, and, exactly what you would hope. I mean, he wants to play, get as many snaps and as many touches as possible so he can turn around and look at the film and start working on corrections there. I just wonder how much of that wish he's going to get there, especially in this in his first preseason game. Now, obviously, you know, you're not going to see a lot of your starters in there. Eric Ebron, it'll be surprising with him and that elbow if he gets any work there. Freiermuth will obviously have to play some snaps. You don't have a lot of tight ends, period, in general. So you would think a guy like Freiermuth going to see a good bit of snaps in that game there. But you're going to be interesting to see with Najee Harris. You know my thoughts on it. I would have him go through the whole process of getting ready, and I'd say you're down, and then I would go through the same process with him in the second game, and then that's when I would get him his first work there, and hopefully with some of that starting offensive line back, because I think at this point anyway, do you really want to run him behind a line that's kind of, piecework backups, if you will? I can guarantee you Ben Roethlisberger's not going to play behind no patchwork
Right.
offensive line. So it'll just be fun to watch this play out, and I don't know how much we're going to learn from Mike Tomlin on Tuesday when he addresses the media on it.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, he's been pretty upfront about guys like Kendrick Green and Antoine Brooks Jr. from day one, but I don't know what his mentality will be. If it was me, as I mentioned on the special edition of the podcast, I think Saturday, I would play Harris for 2 snaps, 1 run, 1 pass play, and then sit him just to kind of check that box and say first career game, check, first career carry, check. But it could go either way, and I'd be fine with whatever decision they make, provided they don't play him for like a half, because that's not necessary at this point.
Does he look every bit of 240? Does he look 240?
Yeah, he's a big dude. He's just
I mean, he
well
looks
built.
big just in the pictures and all, and you go back to the combine stuff and watching the workout and man, the legs on that
Yeah.
guy, man, just incredible. And the calves on him and all, but I mean, how where you remember? Can you remember back to Le'Veon Bell's rookie season? Where is he in kind of relation to because Bell was a little bit. What was Bell? 230.
Yeah, he was in that 230, 240 range.
230 to 240, wasn't he? Do you remember what Bell was at the combine?
I think he had slimmed down for the combine. He had played his rookie year heavier at like 240, and then his sophomore year he dropped down to like 220 and really got in great shape and kind of took his game to another level. 230 was his official weigh-in at the combine, but I think
And
he
that
said
was
he
down. Yeah.
yeah, I think he played more 240, 235 in his first season, and then he kind of really transformed his body. So I think Harris is kind of where Bell is at body type wise in his second year, where Harris just looks rocked and just in tremendously good shape. Not a lot of body fat. I think he's talked about that as
Like
well. So
6% or something like that,
yeah,
didn't he say?
something crazy. So I mean, the guy is just absolutely built.
Do you envision him maybe getting down in the 228 range?
for this
can he? No, not this season. It's not going to
yeah.
happen this season. But because every year you see these Steelers running backs kind of go through that kind of
Sure.
weight loss.
Yeah, Connor had a big change rookie year to
Right.
second year. Huge change. Yeah, it's possible. I think you just take your rookie year and see how 17 games hit you, and see how you feel. And if you want to get more explosiveness, then maybe you drop some weight. So I think naturally players drop a little bit of weights to take some of the pressure off their knees and joints and stuff. But I think that's to be determined based on the success and how Harris enjoys his rookie season.
All right, I'm trying to think what else he really said. That he kind of shrugged off the drops a little bit too much for my liking, because didn't he have a couple of drops in that session the other day there? Well, they all did,
Yeah, he had two, and they were not good drops. Obviously, there is no such thing. But I'm not that worried
Right.
about it.
I just worry about him kind of shrugging them off the way he did. Said, oh, drops happen. And yeah, drops happen. But he shrugged them off a little bit too easy to my liking there.
The questions were kind of weird. Somebody was asking if he was a decoy, and I was like,
right.
What? So I mean, there was some weird line of questioning that may have influenced that answer a little bit.
Yeah, and that's where it goes back to us talking at the start how he'll probably start learning, to better deal with the media and make those answers a little bit shorter.
Right. He talked about the, I think someone had asked him about the offensive line not opening up a world of holes for him in that session, and they certainly did not. Anything he gained basically was created, save for probably one play. And he said, quote, "The line is what it is. It is what it is. Like I said, my job is to do what I can every run to help out the team. My job is to do everything I can to create better situations so we can be in better downs and distance for the team." Added that he believes in this line. No matter who's in front of him, he's going to believe him. But hopefully he finds some more faith and more success when the starters get fully healthy.
All right. Trying to think. Cameron Heyward, as usual, good with the media the other day. Doesn't want Loudermilk to be the next Cam Heyward. Wants him to be himself there, and obviously that's the right answer there. Him and Alu had obviously positive things to say about Loudermilk. So that's another guy we're going to have circled. Going to be interesting to watch the snaps that he plays against the Cowboys there. Marcus Allen feels a lot more comfortable. As you would expect, being in the inside linebacker of this room. Talked about some interesting kind of one-on-ones that or sessions against Najee Harris that you highlighted really well, I think, in your diaries and all, and how kind of got heated in the heat of the battle, but as soon as they get off those after the testosterone stops flowing, they're back teammates again. Those kind of things. He did say though that Najee doesn't duck no thumps. I got to be careful there. I almost almost sounded like a sailor for a moment. Najee doesn't duck no thumps out there on the practice field and all like that. Obviously meaning, because they're not going full bore, but they are thudding each other probably pretty good in certain sessions out there as well too. So it's good to hear from Marcus Allen. Look, that's a guy that kind of questionable whether or not I wouldn't write him in pin. But, I mean, as you've discussed, the up back position and being a little bit more experienced and obviously being a special teams guy, you have to like Marcus Allen's chances, especially with Vince Williams no longer in the picture, of making that 53-man roster.
I do, and I think he has had a good camp, and I think his coverage skills have been positive. And he talked about working on his hand use and pass rush ability, and that's never going to be maybe his forte and strong suit, but just being more comfortable is the big thing. Just having 4 preseason games to go through all this and learn the position and get some real action there and make some mistakes, learn and get better. Last year was just getting thrown into the fire and with COVID and just kind of that craziness. A difficult transition, I'm sure. And so I don't think his body type looks a whole lot different than last season. I'm sure from a mental standpoint, assignment standpoint, and technique standpoint, he's night and day compared to 2020.
All right. What else are we looking for going into this week here? Or what else do we have to wrap up? Anything?
Well, let's do this before we kind of wrap up the show. Get this some emails, maybe 1 or 2 other interviews. Let's talk to Alan Faneca and just a short interview with him because he's busy this week getting ready for the Hall of Fame, talking to some other media outlets. But we're very grateful to get the chance to speak with him, talk about his career a little bit the Hall of Fame. He's also working with a new pharmaceutical company SK Life Science to launch the Steps Towards Zero movement that'll inspire the epilepsy community and educate them about the steps they can take today to get closer to zero seizures, the optimal treatment goal for people with epilepsy. So let's take a break here and be joined by Alan Faneca. And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And as we promised earlier in the show, we have a very special guest here on today's episode. We have Hall of Famer Alan Faneca. And man, it is really good to get to say those words because it's been a long time coming for this. Alan, thanks so much for talking with us today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. How's it going?
We're doing well and really excited for you and for this weekend and for the Hall of Fame ceremony. I just want to start off by talking about, I think probably the most memorable play you had in your career was that, pulling block in Super Bowl 40 to spring Willie Parker for the 75-yard touchdown. Can you kind of just take us through that play and what was going through your head, in the huddle on that play and then during the play and as you're watching Willie Parker race into the end zone?
Yeah, so we were setting up that play the whole game. We were trying to get the ball to Antoine Randall in the slot on the left. And we knew if we could just get him the ball enough and make completions, whether it was 3, 4, 5, 6 yards, nothing big, that they would slide the defense over. It would just annoy them enough to where they would try and take it away from us. So we had this plan in. We had about 6 or 8 plays in the counter 34 pike, which is the play we ran to the house on, was the check on every single one of them in case they ever shifted. So we break the huddle, we call. First thing we're doing, I get in my stance and I'm looking to see if they're shifted over, and they're shifted. And I literally said to myself, holy shit, here we go. Literally. So Ben makes the check and the rest is history, man. I pulled, kicked out, the guys on the front side did their job. And I wanted to see Willie take it to the house. So you can watch it. If you watch it, I kind of block my guy out and then I kind of spin around on the ground to get my legs out of the way, one, because we wanted to, the part of the play was to put that safety in space. And we knew if a one-on-one tackle, with Willie in space was just going to be really hard to do. Right. So one was get my legs out of the way, make the hole even bigger. And 2 was just to watch him take it to the house.
Wow. So even pre-snap, you knew this is the look you guys wanted and this thing could go to the house.
Yeah, we made the check and went to it, and the rest is history.
Awesome. You talk. Your Hall of Fame presenter this year is going to be Hines Ward, and I know you guys came in together, but I don't know if every fan knew that you guys had that close of a relationship. So, kind of talk about how your relationship with Ward grew over the years. And do you remember the first time you met Hines Ward? Because I'm sure he's just an interesting guy and just the character, and just kind of your first experiences meeting him in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So we originally met in college, going to right before we got drafted, going to all of the All-American honor shows and awards banquets and things like that. So we met back then, and then when we came in together, we just formed a bond, man. We pushed each other, we challenged each other, and we always spoke about team goals and team-driven things that we need to do. We need to focus on, help drive the team, be leaders on the team as the years went by. And it just, like just like you said in the intro, right? An offensive lineman and a wide receiver, right, have this bond, right? Mm-hmm. But it happened, and you know what, man? The more I thought about it, and the more I said Hines' name, because it's a really hard task to find. First off, to find somebody to do such a humongous honor for you. Sure. Because there's so many people that touched your life. But the more I thought about it, it was Hines. It was right. It was just felt right. It was the right thing to do.
Alan, when you entered the NFL, Kent Stevenson was your offensive line coach with the Steelers. He had been there a few years already before you had gotten there as well too. We loved going back and watching those old coaching seminars and all. And I came across one last night from '99 with Kent Stevenson breaking down, and even you wearing 65 from your rookie season there. And even then, he basically called his shot right then that keep an eye out on our young new guard Heyward right there in Alan Faneca. What kind of impact did Stevenson have early on in your career? And I mean, obviously you came out of LSU as a decorated and accomplished, and I think the word back then Kent used, I remember in the papers, was country strong, was the way he described Alan Faneca there. Was there a key moment maybe in your rookie season, or an aha moment, or a key coaching segment from Stevenson, that you recall?
I did see that little clip you posted this morning. I love that. I've not seen that before. Kent was great, man. He is a great football coach and a great technician. And, the biggest thing that he taught me was how to be a professional, how to hone your craft and work on your craft, and how to take something you do good and make it something you do great. And you do that by practicing that stuff before practice and after practice and in between drills, and focusing on those things. And it just really taught me how to be a professional. And the group of guys that I came in with, Will Wolford, Dermontti Dawson, Brendan Stye, Jugs, Justin Strelzik, man, those guys took me under their, Jim Sweeney, Roger Duffy, those guys took me under their wing. It was a highly veteran group. And here I am, this young buck in here. They don't have to teach me anything, but they took me under their wing, showed me the tricks that they had figured out over their career, and shared it with me, and really just helped jumpstart my career. And I always look back on that, just blessed to have been around that whole group of guys, including Kent, to help start me in my career.
I assume Kent's still alive. I couldn't find anything do you know if he'll be at the ceremony or not?
He will be there.
All right, good deal. And one other question I have for you. Obviously, a lot of people don't probably, your decorated, obviously NFL career. A footnote in there that should be highlighted more was I think only 2 regular season games during your entire career you missed, and really I think only one of them in 1999 against the Jaguars you missed because of injury. I believe the other one you were inactive because the Steelers had things sewn up there, and it was more of a rest day for Alan Faneca. How hard in 1999 with that ankle injury, I believe it was, you were dealing with, was it for them to get you to sit down for that game?
It was tough, man. So I had the high ankle sprain, and sometimes they're not as bad, and you can kind of play through it. And so I'd been playing through it for a couple of games, and it had not been healing. It had been slowly getting a little bit worse and worse. And I really kind of felt like a ticking time bomb. I wasn't able to do anything highly explosive. Pulling wise was, nothing special in my book to my standards. And I just really felt like a ticking time bomb that I wasn't able to, do as much as I could, and that I was a liability. And so we kind of had a discussion, and I kind of told him what I just said there. And that's when we came to the decision to give me a week and to let it kind of heal up. And it did. That week off helped me come back. It didn't go away, but it definitely gave it a break to where it could heal a little bit and it could get better.
Alan, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Before we get you out of here, I know that you've partnered up with the company SK Life Science in the launch towards Steps Towards Zero movement. I believe that launches today, actually, to help people with epilepsy. So you talk about that, how you teamed up with that company, and kind of what that goal is and how they're going to accomplish it.
So I teamed up with SK Life Sciences to help empower the epilepsy community. And a lot of people might be unfamiliar with the fact that I actually have epilepsy. And when they came to me with this program to help empower the community and to help the community find steps towards zero, which is basically rethink your health plan with your doctors and your caretakers, and not settle for where you are, but maybe things can get better. Because if you've had epilepsy your whole life, maybe you've just kind of settled on where you are. But there are new medicines, new things, new avenues, new paths to try. And we just want to empower everybody to get out there and go find ways to get their steps towards zero, what it means to them. And they can do that by going stepstowardszero.com. And they can also tell their story and hashtag it Steps Towards Zero, and SK Life Science will donate $1 to the Epilepsy Foundation. So there's another good reason to help empower the community and share your story and let everybody know that you're not alone.
That's awesome. Congrats, Alan. Really appreciate
Congrats.
it. Enjoy this
Appreciate it.
weekend. And thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, guys. It's been good.
And again, our many, many thanks to Alan Faneca. Super grateful we had the chance to talk with him. I know he's so busy this week and deservedly so. And Dave, we've been talking about this for a long time. It feels really good to say the words Alan Faneca, Hall of Famer.
Absolutely, and boy, how blessed are we to get a couple minutes of his time here in such a busy, monumental week. It is definitely something I will remember and cherish. Boy, what a guard he was, Alex. You know how I'm starting to get worked up here again. Guards that on the move, and no one could, there are not many in the same class as him. So that was definitely great to talk to Alan Faneca there.
A great player, and I think a great inspiration to so many kids and adults even that battle epilepsy the way that Faneca has, and has still had a heck of a career. And so kudos to him with the work he's doing with SK Life Science and their program Steps Towards Zero. Be sure to check that out, and just a really cool thing that Faneca is doing. All right, Dave, some other news we didn't touch on earlier in the show. On Saturday, the Steelers announced their 2021 Hall of Honor class. 4 well-earned and deserved inductees into the class this year. That is offensive tackle John Kolb, safety, DB, cornerback, whatever you want to call him, Cornell Lake, wide receiver Lewis Slips, and offensive tackle Tunch Ilkin. So a great class, and of course very special for Tunch, especially considering his ALS diagnosis. So I was really especially happy to see him be part of this Hall of Honor class.
Yeah, and as Mike Tomlin said, that's what a list of Steelers that is there for sure. And I mean, I obviously don't. I thought 5 went in normally. I guess I don't know if there's four. I don't know what the limit is on those. Is it up to 5 that can get in? Is that the rules on that?
I think so. I think it can vary. Obviously, it can vary. So I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, about 4 or 5 go in each year.
Cornell Lake, I mean, you start talking about any of those guys, Lewis Lips, and especially go back and thinking about Lips in his rookie season and all like that. Good choices all the way around. And once again, kind of punctuated by Tunch there. And man, I sure hope Tunch is doing okay, with his battle and all like that as well too. Pray for him all the time.
Absolutely.
And so good that several of those guys were teammates going into the Hall of Honor as well too.
And John Kolb, I mean, for me, I almost remember his post NFL career, or at least away from football career, of those strongest man's competitions that used to be on like ESPN2 or ESPN Classic, and just literally, no hyperbole or hyperbole, as you might say, like the strongest guy of his time, just a super, super strong offensive tackle.
Yeah, he was like second and third in the world's strongest man competitions. And boy, I was still a kid. I was 78, 79. I was like 10 years old. But those kind of things would come on like Wide World of Sports or whatnot. And, anytime they mention, Steelers or whatnot, whether it be on the Superstars or World's Strongest Man, you always would try to tune in for that kind of stuff there for sure. So John Kolb, just another great offensive lineman in the long list that the Steelers obviously have had over the years, history of the franchise.
And as Art Rooney and Stan Savran had pointed out as well, Tunch, Kolb, and Lake both had, careers with Pittsburgh following their playing days. Ilkin as a broadcaster, Lake as a coach, and Kolb, I think, as a strength and conditioning coach. And so those guys were making impacts, even when they retired from, playing football.
And I thought Craig Wolfley, who was the one that obviously knows, played with pretty much. I don't think did he play with Lake or no? Did Wolfley?
I'd have to check the years.
Trying to remember if he overlapped or not there with him. But Wolfley had the great stat on Tunch talking about Reggie White and how I think he 6 times he just shut him out. The great Reggie White, one of the premier pass rushers in the league as well too there. So I thought that was a nice little stat for Wolfley to throw out.
Looks like Wolfley's final year and Lake's rookie season, they played together in '89.
Okay, I couldn't remember if they were right. I knew they were right there, close to each other. But all right, good.
All right, Dave, that'll probably wrap up things. We'll have an edition of the special edition of the podcast for training camp later tonight and tomorrow. But before we close out today's show, Dave, let's get to some reader emails.
All right, let's see. I know we don't have many. I know we tackled a bunch of them in the last show there. Let's see how many we have here from. I know I got one. Did we already answer this one the other day? Favorite drill to watch during training camp from
Yeah,
Brian Tate. Did we hit on that one already?
we did.
All right, here's another one from Zersix. I follow the NFL, but I'm not as versed in the insider details like formation schemes, X versus Z receivers, Tampa 2 defenses, 12 formation. Can you occasionally dumb this down more for the people like me, or create specific show around it with Steeler context with examples? You can call it the terrible playbook. That's cute. That's cute. Yeah, we'll try to be more cognizant of trying to. You get going on this, and you know what you know at this point, and then you make the dangerous assumption that the listeners know certain things as well too.
Hmm.
And probably at times we do need to slow it down and say, okay, this is what an X receiver normally does. This is what a Z receiver normally does. This is the root of a Tampa 2 defense, and a good way to kind of identify it. Go over the formations again. So apologize about that. We'll try to get better at that. His second question was, how would you rate Kevin Colbert's job in easy for me to say, transitioning the Steelers from their cap nightmare to potentially competitive team? If the Steelers take a step back, I think he pulled off. Even if the Steelers take a step back, he says, I think he pulled off a miracle. I'm excited about this team's youth movement. I got to be honest with you, from that perspective. Uh, I didn't see water turned into wine here. You know what I'm saying? A lot of this stuff, if you've been listening to Alex and I throughout, from going into from as one season ends and going into the off season, I mean, obviously a lot of this had to do with waiting to find out what the cap number was, especially in this year, right? But
Sure.
even so, we kind of laid out that, well, if this, then you're going to probably see the thing happen with Ben. You're probably going to see. I don't know if I would have foreseen four voidable year contracts at this point, but it was always something that had to be considered due to the cap situation there. Uh, was there anything that you look back on it, Alex, other than, I mean, look, did either of us see the Steven Nelson cut coming?
No.
No. Uh, uh, no. Did either of us see what happened with David DeCastro coming? No.
The
Uh,
Steelers didn't either, apparently.
Right, and that's something that we really haven't touched back on either. What Kevin Colbert had just said recently, we kind of assumed, you and I, back after the news happened, that, man, no way they knew this was coming with David DeCastro. But in so many words, Kevin Colbert said they got into camp and got into mandatory mini camp there, had the foot checked out or ankle checked out. It wasn't good, you know.
Right.
So yeah, if they had seen that coming based on with what they thought they were going to have to do with the offensive line anyway, there probably would have been a guard in that draft,
Hmm.
right? You know,
Well, yeah, the release would have happened months ago.
right? Or and that, and maybe a free agent earlier in the offseason process or whatnot there.
Right.
But uh, his overall question, how would I rate Kevin Colbert's job in transitioning the Steelers from their cap nightmare? I mean, we expected the restructures that kind of happened to happen, the Cam Heyward restructure, and I don't think we're done there. I still think there's a possibility of Stephon Tuitt. So I think they had to do a little bit more, obviously, with the cap number being lower, 20 to 25 million, lower than what was originally expected because of the whole COVID fallout thing and all like that. And then, once again, you're moving sides of this thing too, because of you're saving the kind of money that you saved with Steven Nelson and the David Castro terminations there on top of it there. But outside of that, I mean, once again, Alex, did you see anything kind of that makes you go, "Oh my, look at what he did"?
In a positive way, Not necessarily. I mean, obviously they're working with more cap space than we anticipated because we didn't think things like the David DeCastro release were going to happen. I mean, obviously GMs and coaches and teams get judged, in December and January, so we can look back and be a lot smarter with our answer a couple months from now. I mean, I think it was fine. It was, not a great off season. Obviously, we knew that was coming. It wasn't the bloodbath that we maybe thought it could be with losing guys like Juju. But again, I think and I don't mean to harp on this too much, so I'll only touch on it for a second. But the release of Steven Nelson wasn't a good move and wasn't the right move to me. I think you could have freed up that cap space in other ways, whether that was an avoidable extension with Joe Hayden or not signing a Chris Wormley or Joe Haig or some combination thereof. Now, obviously, Pierre looks good right now, and Cam Sutton is a quality player, but I still disagree with that decision overall. But so I think Colbert did what he had to do in a pretty tough situation. But I'm not going to sing his praises for what he did this March and off season.
If we would have been sitting here right now, though, and it cost you Steven Nelson to have re-signed Mike Hilton, would you have been on board with that? And this is one of those hypotheticals that gets dangerous to kind of talk about here, but had it been an if that then this type of thing, how would you be feeling right now?
What was the first part of that? To retain Hilton, I had to do what?
Let loose the Steven Nelson.
Does Cam Sutton still exist in this scenario, or is Cam Sutton gone?
Yeah. Cam Sutton would be back as well too.
Okay, to replace Steven Nelson. I mean, obviously,
I know it's dangerous to get into that because you move this piece and then that piece needs to be moved and then this piece and then would all this would have assumed that James Pierre keeps on the track that he would have. Look, I mean, we might look back at this and say, hey, nice job, Cobra. I mean, if James Pierre ends up being the real deal, and Cam Sutton starts the season and plays okay on the outside, is it that big of a deal that Steven Nelson's gone?
It wouldn't be, but like I said, those things get judged by what happens a couple of months from now. So we're all going to look smarter with that answer.
Right.
Yeah. To answer your question, I mean, I would feel a lot better about it for sure because I'm retaining Hilton and Sutton. I mean, that's a win in my book and better than where it is right now. And Pierre could still come in dime packages, and Sutton could be the dime defender, and you'd be good to go. Would I prefer that to not having Steven Nelson? I don't know, probably, but obviously that didn't happen, and so. This team is still worse off than where it was a season ago.
So Xerxes, it would be my answer would be that I didn't see any really. I mean, outside of the kind of the surprises of the Steven Nelson and DeCastro thing, there wasn't anything that really floored me based upon the cap, the league wide cap number as the COVID fallout. Now, this team is not as good as last year's team. Let's just get that out there again, right, Alex? I mean, so and the general manager is judged. I mean, look, Kevin Colbert, the motto always is to win a championship. If we are to believe that everything that was done this offseason was to put the team in the best position to win a championship. That's where the water is going to turn into wine, if you ask me. I mean, you and I both said, and said for a while, last year was last year's team that probably had the best chance in quite a while to potentially win a Super Bowl. I think it's monumental at this, borderline monumental if this team gets into the playoffs and wins a game or two this year. So is that how we should judge Kevin Colbert? Congratulations, you won a playoff game, good job, or is it you fell short and didn't win the Super Bowl? I'm sure Kevin Colbert will tell you, it's win the Super Bowl there. So where is the measuring stick at for us not named Kevin Colbert when it comes to the 2021 Steelers?
Well, I would at least
sense.
I would at least like to win a playoff game. They haven't done it since 2016. And so, I mean, if this is Ben's final season and either you A, don't make the playoffs, or B, are one and done again, I mean, that's going to suck all the more. Obviously, any sort of playoff loss would, and anything that doesn't result in a Lombardi is going to suck in some way. But man, I would at least like to win a playoff game. That would be nice to get back to that. So I guess that's not necessarily my standard, but that's at least the bar I would like to hit. Do I think they'll do it? I think it'll be really, really tough for them to do, but that's the minimum to me in terms of looking upon the season with some level of success.
All right, I hope we got that kind of question answered to satisfaction there. Let's see. John
And yeah,
Carr.
regardless of what we think about the offseason, that's all past us. Like we can talk
Right.
about that 10 different ways, but the season's here and we'll just judge what
Right.
happens.
Let's see. Hi, David Alex. I know it's early in camp. However, do you think currently on the roster? Okay, we already hit this one too. The traded to team. So that covers all the questions I think that we have in the email box right now, Alex. So might as well cut it short now because you and I will be back Monday night recapping the Monday training camp practice and getting you ready to get into Tuesday as well too.
All right, good deal. So yeah, looking forward to that and back on our normal schedule. So excited to get back talking some football very, very soon.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, please go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar. For $25, you can have a 1-year membership, ad-free membership to the site there, and that's been very popular as well too. Alex, drive safe. Looking forward to your reports on Monday and Tuesday as well too. So as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.